Welcome back. This is Dan Havey with CF Ninja Hacks, and today we're going to take a look at the Vomley page here. This is the pricing page for Vomley, a company that Russell just acquired. And in here, it's built on 2.0, and inside of here they have a frequently asked question toggle in here, or accordion, I guess is what we could call it. And so as we click on each one of these here, now I just noticed something I did not build into mine, that as you open up one, it actually closes the others. But I think I frankly like it better the way I did it. So as you open one, it stays open until you click on it again and it closes it. And how they built this is they used what is known as, I will go over here to it, and let me just back up one page here. So this is the jQuery user interface is what this is here. And so what they did is they took some commonly used jQuery type elements and built out some functionality. And I came down here to Accordion. So you can just go to jQueryui.com, and then I came down here to Accordion, and you can see here they got these accordions you can put in here, and as you click on each one, they will open up like that. And let me just see here, that's the default functionality is what we're seeing here. And then we can say we can collapse the content, which I'm not sure. I'd have to look at, see what the difference is there. You can customize your icons. You can say here fill space and then make it so that it is resizable like this. No auto height. Not quite sure what the difference is on that necessarily. I guess maybe it's just because this one is so much longer, and then you get the sidebar on there. And then this one's interesting where it becomes sortable. You can actually move these items around in here. So that's kind of fun in there as well. And when you want to set this up, you can come over here. You can go to the API documentation, go through all the documentation and put in all the content that they say you need to put in here, including uploading this JavaScript library. And so you also see here then once you get into the code, it's going to create certain classes here like UI Accordion header, which is what told me as I was looking at the code that that's exactly what they were using here, is because here we have the class of UI Accordion. Here we have the class of UI Accordion header right there. And so that's what clued me in that that's what they were doing, was using the jQuery UI there. One of the things I don't like about how they did this is they have just with this, the little arrow here, the little pointer, I forget exactly what it's called for your Font Awesome character there, but they just have a flip. And I like mine to show some sort of rotation. I went a little crazy on mine and have it go 540 degrees instead of just 180. And then the other thing I don't like is, see, you got this little gray line down here. Well, as I click to close this, the gray line will automatically pop up to the top before the content actually closes. See how it did that? I don't like that at all. And I guess you only notice it when you're closing it itself, not when it's being closed by one of the other clicks on one of the other questions here. But either way, I didn't like that. So what I really wanted to do is show you how easy this is to build this natively into 2.0 without having to go through, having to put in the jQuery UI, having to go through all their documentation, and just being able to use native ClickFunnels elements. So let's close that and let's go into my ClickFunnels right here. And again, this is very simple, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rebuild it really quick on the fly. But before I do that, let's just take a look at what my result is. Obviously, you can change the colors, you can change everything about that, and this, what's really nice about it, building it in 2.0, is that you can change all these things because it's so simple. Now, I see one thing I have to put in here is I have to put in the pointer, so as we go along, I will put that in, so we got a finger pointer when somebody hovers over this element right here. But so let's say we're going to click on this element, and you just watch the icon over here is going to spin around, like I said, 540 degrees. Normally, you just make it like 180, so it only goes halfway around. But, you know, it certainly gets your attention as you see that spinning around there. Then the text part of the element opens up, and then below this here is actually a divider element. It's not like a border or something on a text element, it is a divider element in between each one of these. So let us go into the editor and start rebuilding the section. So let's just add a new section. We're going to make that full width section. And in this case here, let me just leave it as a white background this time. And now let's put a row in here, and we want a 1-column row. And I found that at 1170 was way too wide, so just to match the one above, I'll make it 850 pixels right there. And whether you got side padding, top, bottom padding, of course, change that out as you will. Change out your colorations, your text, your everything as you go along. And so then inside of here, we just need to put in a series of elements. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in that sub-headline element. So we're going to put that in. And then on that sub-headline element, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to float it to the left. We are going to give it a larger font size just so we can see it a little bit better. And in here, of course, you can put some padding on it and whatnot. I think I put in, let me just say, we had 15 padding here on that. And so on left and right, so we'll do that. We got some top and bottom padding. And then we're going to come down here, and in this case here, we're not going to do any background on anything. As you saw over here, they had everything all just one color on the whole thing. And so, but what we do need to do is we do need to do an icon after. And so in this case here, like I said, I forget what it was called. It's not an arrow. They call it a, what is it? An angle down. That's what it is. It's an angle down. So we're going to put that right there. And you see it's up close. So we're going to use a little bit of CSS and tell it to go over here to the right-hand side. And then one more thing I'm going to do is we're going to come into the code and we're going to say we need to call this something. We need to give this either an ID or a data attribute of some sort. And I decided in this case here that we would actually use attributes because I think there's a lot more flexibility with them in that. In this case here, we're just going to call this, we're going to give it a data title of FAQ, just like that. So in this case here, I'm not going to do that on this element because I'll just apply the code to the one I already have existing. I'll show you how I built this out, and then we'll go from there on the upper part. So all you got to do here then is, well, let's do this. Let's add another element first, and we're going to go to our paragraph element. And in our paragraph element, we are going to float that to the left. And of course, again, we can come in here and we can set some side padding. We can do anything we want. Let's just say we want 20 pixels on that. Of course, we can set background colors. We can set the font sizes, shadows, text shadows, shadows around the elements. Well, I guess not. In this case here, we got text shadow. You could use some CSS if you want to put a shadow around the element. And then the third element we have to put in here, again, is very simple, just a divider element. And then we're going to come into the divider element and we're going to say what kind of color we want. And we want more of a grayish color and maybe a little bit less darkness there. The one above I have on top of gray, so I didn't have to bring it down. And then up above, I also took out the top and bottom padding in there, and that's pretty much it. Then you just come in here and you just clone each one of these elements 3 times, and you're going to find the divider is really hard to get at. So we'll come up here to the layout and we'll come down here to the divider, and we will say we want to duplicate that, and we will duplicate that twice right there. And then we come back over here and go clone, clone, and clone, clone, and then we just start moving things around until we get them all where we want them. And it appears now I have like 3 dividers all stacked on top of each other, at least I should. So we'll just come over here to the dividers and we'll pull it up and put it after the paragraph for each one. There we go. So we got divider, paragraph, divider. Okay, so there we go. We have all the elements in place. And like I said, stylize each one. And then we'll just go up here to the top to see what I did up here. And so we'll go into the element itself. And what you do in order to put in the, oh, well, I'll look at this here first. So I have no IDs set in here. Like I said, I could use IDs, but I didn't want to. So for each element, we're going to do a data attribute instead. So we come down here to our custom attributes. And in our case here, we're going to click on add the custom attribute. And I just put in data dash title. And the only reason I'm using data title is it's very common to use data, and there should be an A here. Data attributes is what they call them. Data attribute already exists. That's fine, because we're going to go here and we're going to say FAQ-4, and then that should not exist because I have not done this one yet. So we can just say save. And let me see if it does it here. Why is it not going to let me do that? Let me see here. We had data title equals FAQ of 1. So let's try this again. Data title, data attribute. Oh, I know why, because I'm calling it data title again in the exact same element. So I couldn't call it that. I could call it, let's say, data FAQ in this case here. Then I could say FAQ-4, and then that would create a different attribute. So you can't use the same, you can't say data title, you can't make up more than one data title, you just have to use something different. But like I said, in general, these are referred to as data attributes. And so we will just delete this one out of here if it lets me. It's not letting me. Let me see if I can edit it, cancel. Oh, now I managed to delete both of them. All right, so let's put it back in. Data title, and then we got FAQ-1, and we will save that. And now there we are. So that has that one, and then we have the element below here, which we have hidden right now. So we got this paragraph element. So let's just show it on desktop. We can again come into the element itself, come into the element, and we'll come up here. And in this case here, we have here data title answer -1. And then it says data show only on desktop. That's something that ClickFunnels put in there. I did not put that in there because it's saying that it should only be visible on desktop. If we come in here and we say that we want this to be visible on all, I suspect that data attribute will now go away. It sure did. But let's just try this here. Let's go here now, put this on mobile only, and there you go. It put in a data attribute for show only right there. So that's pretty cool. Actually, in this case here, we want it to show on none at all. And then let's go back to our mobile view and come back out, because now I'm curious. Let's go back in there and see what it says if it has. Yeah, there you go, data show only of none. So it's interesting that it's putting in this data attribute in there. But either way, so we do that, and then we had the last element we had there, which again is very difficult to get to because it has no height basically, is the divider, and I took out all the height and made it just a light gray color. And now you're going to see, like I said, the angle down is way over here on the side. Well, how it gets there is by a little bit of CSS code, and that is right here. So I said data title FAQ. So our data title contains FAQ because we had here FAQ1, FAQ2, FAQ3. And then inside of it, we had to go down to the point where we had the icon node. So let me show you what that looks like in the real world. Let's go over here and let's click on this actual icon. So here we have our data title of FAQ1 right there. And now we have to say, though, we got to come down inside of this parent element. We got to come down to the child element. That is this data page element icon node, because we had to identify just this part of the headline element so that we can eventually rotate it as well. So we need to move it over to the right hand side and then rotate it. And you see as I move my mouse around, we get down to the point here where we are only then just specifically on that element. Could we have used a different way to identify this? Yeah, I could have put in here. Instead, I could have used this class right here of ID-icon node. That also would have done exactly the same thing, but I just chose to use this, again, what is a data attribute on the top line there. So that's what we're saying is grab a hold of that element, and we want to float it all the way to the right-hand side. Now, as we float it all the way to the right-hand side, it will, though, still respect any padding that is around the element itself. So you see there, you still got the green on the right-hand side. So right over here, there's still green because we had padding around there of 15 pixels on either side. So it will still respect it, so everything will still line up very nicely. And then we're going to say here transition of half a second, so that when this thing does rotate, it will rotate in half of a second. And then, so each direction it will go half a second. And that's what we got down here is where we say we're going to rotate this icon right there. We're creating a new class, and we're going to add and remove that class, which will then tell it to rotate. And I'll show you that in the JavaScript in a minute. And we're going to say transform rotate of 540 degrees. Like I said, when we go 540, it really does a big spinny thing there. So let's just change this back to 180. So instead of going around 1.5 times, it'll only go around 1 time. And what did I just do there? Let me pause. Whoops, let me see if I can click the back button and see if that fixes it. Nope, that's not fixing it. So let me reload the page. Reload the page. We'll lose this work down here, which is fine. We didn't need it anyway. Okay, so let's try this again. Something's not wanting to play nice there, so we'll go 180 degrees. So now when it does rotate, and so let's just save it, when it rotates now, this time it'll only spin around half the way, not 1.5 times around. So there it goes, it just kind of flips over. That's not nearly as exciting as the other one, but we will leave it like that for now. So now let's come back in here, and we got one other thing we got to look at is the footer code. And so let's look at the footer code. And what we're saying here now is anytime somebody clicks on that FAQ item, so the top item on here, we want to run a function. So anytime somebody clicks on one of these, we want to run a function. And in that function, we're going to simply say this. This always refers to the thing that you just clicked on. Okay, so we clicked on that top row. We clicked on the small call to action headline here. Then it says go start at this, the thing we just clicked on, and then go to the next sibling element. So let's just take a look at that. Let's go in here. So here is our this, and the next sibling element would be this element right here, which is that paragraph. Okay, so it says go to that next element. Now, for my sake here, what I did is I put in something identifying that element, and I said we want to go to the next element with a data title of answer in it. Now, if we had just said next, it would have done the same thing because it would only go to the next element. Next always is just one element after it, is not 25 elements after it. It's always just the next element after it, unless I'm completely messing that up, and I don't think so. But I've been writing a lot of code in the last couple of months, so all of a sudden I'm doubting myself. And now it says here, slide toggle, and we can put, well, we don't have to put a timer in here because we could put half a second in there or 500 milliseconds in there. We could put that in there, but because we set that in the CSS already, saying we want this to happen over half a second, then we don't have to. In fact, now that I think about it, we're doing that as we're just doing that on the node itself, on the icon itself. So we could, in this case here, come in here and say 500, because now that I think about it, I think the default is to fast, which would be 400 milliseconds. So in our case here, we'll put in 500 milliseconds. So it'll take 500 milliseconds for it to go up and down, take 500 milliseconds for the icon to rotate. And then we're going to say here on that icon node again, so on the icon itself, that is associated with this again. So the icon for the element we just clicked on, we want to toggle that class to icon rotate. And again, that was this here where we rotate it over half a second. So we want to turn that class on and off. As it does it, it will rotate that icon around. And now there is one last thing I need to do in here. And we're going to come back into our CSS. And what we're going to say here is it's going to have to be on the data title of FAQ is where we want this. So let me copy that. And we're going to paste this back in and put in our little curly brackets. And we'll come up, and what we want to say is, no, we got to say cursor, C-U-R-S-O-R of pointer. That way we're going to get the little pointy finger on there whenever we go over the element now. So now we go over it, and we get the pointy finger, whereas if we didn't have that, you're going to see, well, let me see here. Did that kill it? It's not wanting to kill it. Let's try it here. Yeah, well, it doesn't like what I'm doing there. So let me put that in there, and then this here. Now let's see what happens. It's still not killing it for me. I don't know why. I guess once I turned it on, it does not want to turn back off. So we will just save this. You saw it. Well, here, we can go over here and see what it looks like. Right there, you see it's just a straight up and down line signifying text. So now let us save this and let us reload our page. And now as we come in here, now we do have the pointy finger, and there we go. We flip everything over just like that. Now, as I was coming in here, like I said, I noticed something I had not noticed before, that as we click on this, it will close the other ones as well. It does not leave it open. In our case here, we have it so all of them could be open. So why don't I just pause for a second here and do it so that it closes all the others, so that we have one more example of how you can get this all fixed up. Okay, so it took me a little bit to do this here, but it's working just fine now. So when we click on this one here, it rotates 180 degrees and opens up. If we click on it again, it will then close. So we can open, we can close. But now if we come down to the second one here, you will see the top one close. The icon will rotate. This icon will rotate. This one will open. And again, we have the same thing here, but you're going to be amazed because it's like 3 times as much code in order to get this to work, because you have to have the condition wherein you open just one of them and then you want to close it again. That is the first condition, but you have the second condition where you have one open and you want to open up another. That is a second condition which has a different requirement on it. So let me just show you that code right here, and let me open up the sidebar so we can see all of it. So what I did is I just commented out the first couple lines of code here, put in the second one. So we got the same trigger here. Of course, when you click on the FAQ at the top, we're going to say, okay, well, check to see if this icon already has the class of icon rotate. So that would mean we'd be in a situation like this where this one is already open. So it says if this already has the open icon right there, then we want to just close this part up. So that's what it says here. It's just these 2 lines then say, okay, we want that section to slide up. See, up here we were using slide toggle. Here we're using slide up and slide down instead, to say, okay, are we going to open one and close another, not to toggle them. Toggle might work, but it gets a little confusing sometimes, so you're better off using up and down in a situation like this. And then in the case like we had right here, where we just had the singular one open and we are closing that same one, then we just want to remove the class, rotate the icon back, and like I said, slide the answer up. Now if we get to one where we have one open and we want to open another, then we obviously have to have one slide up, one slide down. One we want to add the class to the icon, the other one we want to remove the class from the icon, and that is exactly what we do right down here, which is the same essentially as what we had up here at the top, except like I said, here we're going to slide one up, we're going to slide one down. Here we're going to remove a class, here we're going to add a class, whereas up here we use the toggle instead, and we just flipped back and forth between the 2 states that it can have, basically being on or off, opened or closed. So that is it. 2 different ways that we can quickly create a nice little FAQ slider like they had right here in ClickFunnels. And like I said, I think ours looks better. And part of it is we're using the native elements. And so the beauty is you can go into the editor and you can do any kind of custom CSS you want on these elements, design them any way you want so that your FAQ can be yours and be great for yourself and for your customers. So if you got any questions, just let me know.